Your Excellencies, colleagues and friends, distinguished panelists, very pleased to join this timely discussion on the incompatibility between democracy and racism. Democracy thrives or withers on the extent to which all of us enjoy our right to meaningful and inclusive participation in public and political affairs without discrimination. Such participation is essential for achieving racial justice, equality, and the commitment to pluralism ensures that decision-making becomes more sustainable and public institutions more effective, transparent, accountable, and able to serve all communities. Too often, however, we see racism, racial discrimination, xenophobia, and related intolerance pervade democratic structures and discourse, undermining the very foundations of democracy and the social cohesion safeguarding it. Consultations convened by our office when drafting our guidance note revealed that pervasive racism continues to impede the effective participation of people of African descent in public affairs. Disaggregated data, where available, points to low levels of representation of marginalized racial and ethnic groups in political and public lives, with women particularly affected. The Inter-American Commission on Human Rights, for example, has noted that barriers to women's participation are in part linked to gender-based violence and to deeply rooted historical patterns of discrimination stemming from colonialism and enslavement. A recent analysis by a non-governmental organization found that disparities persist in reflecting the EU's demographic reality, with the proportion of members of the European Parliament identifying as belonging to racial and ethnic minorities remaining modest. And that, I mean, approximately 4% during the period 2019-2024. The fundamental freedoms of opinion, expression, peaceful assembly, and association are indispensable pillars of democracy. Freedom of expression is meant to empower individuals in order that they can participate in public debates, hold authorities accountable, and foster transparency in governance. However, it should not extend to incitement to discrimination, to hostility, or to violence. And yet, across the globe, we witness a wave of harmful and dehumanizing narratives that are fueling fear and division, as well as inciting hatred and violence. Those targeted are often people of African descent, migrants, refugees, Roma, indigenous people, minorities, and other groups. Toxic rhetoric is amplified by social media, and AI-generated content is also used to manipulate public opinion and exploit public fears. Some political leaders have openly emboldened discrimination for political gain. Dear colleagues and friends, I encourage all of us to use today's discussion to consider how we can urgently and effectively address these challenges to buttress effective participation of marginalized racial and ethnic groups. Comprehensive intersectional measures grounded in international human rights law and supported by adequate funding are essential. To name a few initiatives that are striving towards this goal, let me share. Last year, for example, Mexico enacted a significant constitutional reform that affirms the rights of indigenous people, recognizing them as subjects of public law with legal status and rights to self-determination. Canada has involved communities affected by racism in developing laws on the collection, use, and disclosure of data, informing the development of the 2022 Anti-Racism Data Act. In the European Union, Roma organizations have actively participated in the development of the EU framework for Roma inclusion. In Ireland, the National Action Plan Against Racism for the period 23 to 27 was informed by written submissions, an online survey, and consultations, including from individuals who had experienced racism, from civil society and community organizations. Our office stands ready to assist states, including 1, to adopt special measures and institutional arrangements that can promote and ensure equal representation and participation, and 2nd, to anchor legal and policy response in data disaggregated by race or ethnic origin in line with the human rights-based approach. We encourage states to establish or to strengthen independent national human rights institutions with adequate resources and robust mandates to combat racism and racial discrimination. National action plans against racism, if inclusive of specific time-bound commitments and effective monitoring, can also be a critical tool for moving from aspirational statements and commitments to concrete results. Complementary strategies such as education, awareness raising, and creating safe, enabling environments offline and online are equally important. And above all, we must tackle the root causes, in particular by addressing legacies of enslavement and colonialism and delivering reparatory justice. As we mark the 60th anniversary of the International Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination and look ahead to the 25th anniversary of the Durban Declaration and Programme of Action next year, I call on all states to reaffirm commitment to the effective participation and representation of marginalized racial and ethnic groups in decision-making processes. I am hopeful that today's discussion will provide an opportunity to reflect, to share best practice, to advance our understanding, and most of all, to accelerate our commitment to action to end the scourge of racism.